Hey BookTube, it's your boy Buck. Welcome back to another episode of Buck's Books. Today's episode, I would like to warn you ahead of time, we will be treading some dark and dangerous waters. This is going to be a very spooky and potentially dangerous forest that we will be going through together. However, stay close, stay frosty. We should make it through okay. I would like to talk to you about a book called Captivate by an author and scientist named Vanessa Van Edwards. Taking it from the top, Vanessa Van Edwards posits that she is an expert in human interaction and charisma in general. She can teach you how to not be socially inept. And she maintains this is because she herself is a quote-unquote recovering awkward person, right? She was socially inept at one point, and now she is incredibly socially apt. And I came by her book in the first place by watching one of her interviews. It showed up on my YouTube algorithm because psychology. She was walking the walk. The things that she said, they tracked and they showed in what she was doing because she was captivating. Like, it seemed like she must know what she was talking about. And if we can maintain that at one point she was awkward, then obviously she fixed it. You couldn't look away from her. So I said, okay, let's see what she's got. And I went and I got the book. So this is one of those take warning situations. You gotta walk into it eyes open, because if someone tries to tell you that they can fix what's wrong with you socially, they're trying to sell you a program, and the program does not guarantee any sort of results because it's dependent on you. So it's zero skin in the game on their side. And you see this everywhere. Like, you can't spit without seeing another guru who's going to teach you how to optimize your life and learn how to talk to ladies so your life just becomes one big Axe commercial. And it's the perfect hustle for them because there is no buy-in. Like, they're just selling you a promise, and the promise is contingent on you doing exactly as they say. And if their promise doesn't come true, well, they can just say, well, you must not have done it right. Are you sure you did exactly what we said? I think we need to upgrade you to the super premium subscriber package. It's only $40 a month more, So this cycle is endless. And another good indication is if it's a cult of personality that has these people's faces all over the front, So that's the grain of salt that we're walking in with, right? Her science is all sound. She was citing studies that I'm familiar with. The other studies she cited, I looked up, and they're all legit. So she's a real scientist. And more importantly, she's a believer. She isn't like, it's not the Donnie Darko Fear and Love guy situation with sweet Vanessa. She 100% buys everything that she's selling. And she really wants to use it to make the world a better place. She's really trying to weaponize this into helping you. This is the conclusion of her monomyth. This is her heroic journey. She has returned with the boon from the gods, and the boon from the gods is being able to talk to people without being a weirdo. And she is trying to teach all these little weirdos how to do that. And I mean, that's beautiful, don't get me wrong. So let's get into the substance of the book itself, right? And then we'll double back to Vanessa at the end. The book itself is sort of a pastiche of all of these very popular psychology concepts that you have already heard of, is the thing. And I thought maybe I might have already heard of them, but it's not, because this is it's like TikTok psychology. So she starts off with the 5 love languages. So her ultimate goal here, she talks about hacking, right? Hacking social relationships, hacking interactions. And if you exist in the interpersonal sphere in any significant way, some of this is going to sound familiar. I warned you that it was going to be dark and spooky, and that's because a lot of what she will be discussing will overlap directly with pickup culture and the game in specific by Neil Strauss. So, I read the game many years ago in college, right? And it was grim, for lack of a better word. The idea behind the game is there is a specific algorithm that you can perfect using all of these pitiful canned lines and this hot and cold approach to convince women of your... It's the dentist system, all right? The game is essentially the dentist system from It's Always Sunny. So to convince women of your value and then try to make them earn your respect, and then they're trying to justify why they are, and because they're such emotionally driven creatures, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually you can just hook up with whoever you want forever. And even in the book, it didn't really work that way. These weird, sad guys were working all of these bleak tricks. You know, this neuro-linguistic programming, it's depressing sorcery. They're out there and they're trying they're going to bars, and the one guy is wearing like a big hat with light up LEDs on it because he's peacocking, you know, he's drawing their attention. The girls will say, "Ooh, I wonder why this guy thinks he can get away with dressing like that. It's probably because he has secret value." It's just an exercise in delusion, but ultimately practicable, because the function that it serves is it convinces these pathetic men, A, to take care of themselves a little bit, you know, to clean the place up, to get in reasonable shape, to start brushing their teeth, and then B, to overcome their fear of talking to people, their fear of approaching women in the first place, because women can smell fear, just like dogs. Don't you ever forget it. But even beyond that, they're seeing all of this progress. These people who start utilizing the bleak pickup artist tricks, they're seeing improvements in their romantic lives and in their personal lives. And they're like, wow, it worked for me. But what worked for you, dude, is coping skills. What worked for you is now you're taking some care of yourself and you're interacting with other human beings. You've overcome your fear of talking to people. It doesn't matter what you say. I mean, it matters to some degree. You can't walk up and be like, "I want your skin," or anything, but like, to some degree, all you need to do is start the conversation and it'll be fine. So that's what these men were learning, but they didn't realize that's what they were learning. They thought they were learning this secret, dark psychology hack. And that's what the game is about, and that's what pickup artistry is about. And if you want to, you know how The Office sort of really popularized that cringe humor? You know, you're laughing, but it's nervous laughter because everything is so uncomfortable. If you want more of that, just Google, like, or not Google, but go on YouTube and look up just like pickup artists in action. Like, you want to see the actual, not a dude who's selling a seminar. Well, even a dude who's selling a seminar will work. But just like the average schlub who's trying to utilize these tactics, and it will just twist your guts like Hellraiser, man. Just turn them all the way around. So that is sort of what's being pushed in Captivate, but for moral reasons now. Okay? So obviously the pickup artistry thing, completely amoral. Whatever. They can dress it up in a situation where it's like, well, I'm only doing it so I can find my one true love, and then I have my wife, and me and my wife can raise goats on a farm in the woods and evade taxes. And that's beautiful. It is. But that's not what you're doing. You're just trying to get laid. And that's fine. It's fine. Dude, it's fine to it's fine to try to get laid. There's no, like, that itself is not necessarily immoral, but when you become this sort of automaton who's spitting out these canned lines in an effort to manipulate people, that's where we get into the morally shaky ground. And then that takes us into the next dark triad portion of our conversation today, which is talking about the despicable Robert Greene and his books of how to bend people to your will. And Robert Greene, I cannot believe Robert Greene has as much of a following as he does, because once again, he's selling delusion. Because have you ever seen Robert Greene? Have you ever seen the man who wrote The Art of Seduction and the 48 Laws of Power? Well, first of all, he's an English teacher. So that's before he became an author, before he made money writing these books about how to be so powerful, he was not powerful. He was an English teacher. And this is what he looks like. That's our guy. That's the art. This is the man. This man wrote The Art of Seduction. Okay? This man is the one who has the keys to human mastery and all of the power. The 48 Laws of Power. Well, I think they're up to 50 because he co-wrote another book with 50 Cent to create another law of power. And you're not going to tell me, dude, you're not going to tell me these aren't cash grabs. You're not going to tell me these aren't hustles. They are selling delusion. He's capitalizing on insecurity. I read the book. It's an interesting book. I read all the books. And they were kind of dry, as could be expected. Some of the ideas were pretty sound, but ultimately, it was a lot of very surface level art of war stuff like deceive your enemies. And then on top of that, there were these vignettes that he'd mixed in from history. And the vignettes would often contradict one another. So all of these rules, all of these laws of power, all of these types of seduction, they're contradicting one another constantly. So you can't fail. Because, like, no matter what you do, there's an opposite somewhere in the book. He's like, well, you should have done that. Turns out you're not You're not the star. You can't play the star with that woman. You have to use the rake persona, you know? And same deal. Cult of personality, same meaningless hustle that he's pushing. And I just, again, what the dude looks like. But he's made millions doing it, capitalizing on that insecurity. But he's doing it to teach you how to be a sociopath. Like, if you follow all of the laws laid out by Robert Greene, he is teaching you how to divorce from your own humanity entirely in order to be a psychopath. To be cold and calculating, and he justifies it by saying, well, all human interaction is transactional, and we're all playing the game on some level. This is just having the honesty to admit that we know we're playing the game. And that's a really cute justification and all, but I don't think most of us are playing a game like that. I think most of us are just, like, I think Rousseau was largely right, and most of us are decent people, and we just want to, like, connect and affiliate and interact, considering that's what evolution has designed us to do. And to suggest that it turns out what you've discovered is better than nature, and this is how it really works, and all you have to do is be incredibly lonely and empty for the rest of your life, and then you'll have all the power you can imagine. Why would you buy that? That's a hard sell. The reason I keep bringing up all of these bleak men is because Vanessa Van Edwards, she is moving a lot of the same product here. She's following the same general trajectory with her own classes that you, of course, can also purchase the deluxe pack with and really get on board with changing your life, understanding interpersonal human affiliation. But she is doing it for the purposes of actually connecting with one another, because hers is psychologically sound. So there are dirty tricks in the pickup artist thing, and they come from studies, but they are not themselves built on studies. You know, they are just themes that they've noticed from studies. And there's no studies whatsoever involved in anything that the despised Robert Greene is talking about. He's just making things up. He's making his own connections, and they're loose connections. They're like schizoid connections. But he made millions on it, so you can buy it if you want to. No one can stop you. Vanessa Van Edwards runs her own research lab called The Science of People. So she's constantly vetting and she's constantly testing these things. And she's concluded that these are the things that you can use to be certain of your interpersonal effectiveness, and this translates right on over into industrial organizational psychology. So a lot of what she's pushing for the purpose of obviously expanding your romantic life and for improving your ability to network and expanding your professional life. And that's all that anybody cares about. It's 2025. Let's go. So it's great. It's a great hustle. It's cashing in on that same insecurity, but I do believe that she believes. I do believe that she's doing it for good and righteous reasons, which is not something that can be said of the other two categories that we've already discussed a little bit. In terms of the application, like I said, it's rudimentary stuff. She talks about the 5 love languages. It's very popular right now. She talks about the big 5 personality traits, the ocean, right? The openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So this is currently the best personality metric we have, but like all personality metrics, they're very flexible. It's sort of like how the Myers-Briggs was astrology for people who don't believe in astrology. So is the big 5. So is ocean, more or less, because this is another thing that shifts radically depending on the like. Ideally, it's reflective of static personality traits, but depending on your mood at the time of your taking it, you can get radically different results, you know? So, and this is the flaw that you're going to find with all things that are done of self-report, and self-report is how we do psychology, for the most part. So, you know, you kind of have to expect that a little bit, but that is like the second foundational piece of the sort of Captivate product. And then the third is a value system, trying to track values, and this doesn't connect exactly with the work of Martin Seligman and the Seligman, whatever, the hippie who electrocuted dogs in the 70s, that guy who invented positive psychology. But it's close enough to his work and the strength and values questionnaire, the VIA questionnaire. So if you have these 3 parts, you can form a sort of matrix that will tell you a lot about a person in theory. And then you can cater, you know, you can pander your approach to what you suspect this person will like. What are their love languages? That's an easy way to know what they will respond to, what they consider of value. What are their values, you know? Do they value information over money, or do they value the ability to be recognized as competent, or do they value caretaking, or they're all love? There are all these, again, they're abstractions. They're flexi words. They can fit a lot of different things. My boss, we know that we're more introverted. We know that they're probably motivated by esteem. We know that their primary love language is words of affirmation. Okay, so that we got it. So then you communicate primarily by email. Make sure you give them a lot of space to respond to things. Run it by them whenever you're trying to, whenever you have a big idea, the big idea goes to the boss motivated by esteem to see if they can get a leg in on it, because then they will associate you with that, and that will increase your chances of going further. And since they love words of affirmation, just gas them up in the email. It's got to be an email. You can't have a conversation in person because they're introverted and they're going to get nervous. So you send them, you get them involved in the email chain, give them time to think about it. Say, okay, I got this big idea. I want to do this. What do you think? Because in the past, you have had success with this, and this project, you know. So draw on theirs. That's pandering to their esteem needs. So they feel, you know, the boss feels great now. And the boss goes, and then the boss thinks about it. And it's like, what a great idea. We should get him a raise. And that's Captivate. That's what she's pushing, you know. But she also talks about, and again, it's canned lines, a lot of canned lines that you can use for interpersonal connection in the moment. She calls them something swishy. She calls them, it's not glimmers, I think it's sparkers. I think conversation sparkers, something like that. I know they call them glimmers in DBT. These weird questions. And in theory, they can be used to great effect in order to stretch the conversation beyond its normal confines, because she hates boring conversations. Okay. And that's the point of Captivate. If you want to be captivating, you have to be memorable, you have to be different, you have to be enchanting. And she's an enchantress. So, yeah, let's see where it goes. Well, where it went is she wants you to ask all of these weird, like, you ever see that video of, like, Commander Riker, right? Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek, and he's, like, dressed up in the suit, and he's wearing way too much eyeliner. And he's talking about, he's just asking weird questions. It's like a 90s thing.
Ever gone mountain biking?
What do you want to be when you grow up?
What's the right tip? Have you called a plumber to your home lately? How superstitious are you?
That thing. So those are her sparkers. That's what she wants you to be bringing to the interpersonal conversations. And, like, it can work. But here is where I'd like to bring it back around to Vanessa herself. It can work if you're hot. Vanessa is beautiful. And she talks as though she's not. But, like, if you look at her, because she pastes her face all over everything she does, and that is her right. You look at her, she's just like a sexy little salamander with autism. You know, she's out there and she's trying to break all of these things down to very precise mathematical codifications that can be applied in something as abstract and malleable as interpersonal connection and social communication. And she wants it to be specific, and she wants it to be rigid, and she wants it to make sense in a way that you would expect from someone with high-functioning autism. That would probably tie into her awkwardness, the awkwardness she experienced when she was younger and whatnot. But the thing that you have to understand about what Captivate is pushing is, first of all, it will work spectacularly if you're beautiful. I don't think it will work as well if you're not. That's an unfortunate situation that applies to every domain of life. We have the halo effect. We know the halo effect. Beautiful people have it easier. And I don't think she appreciated the sort of ramifications of citing the study. But she talked about the one study in particular that said that 76% of our first impressions go on to be proven right. Because we, as human beings, social animals, are very good at recognizing, stay with me on this one, facial features, right, that go on to dictate personality traits. So at a glance, we can tell by the structure of someone's face what their personality is going to be like. That's physiognomy, dude. She's out here, sweet Vanessa's champion physiognomy, and she doesn't realize it. I hope she doesn't realize it. It'd be worse if she did. But she's just this bubbly, slithery little creature, and she comes out, and I've seen the interviews on YouTube. Like I said, I discovered her in the first place. I discovered this whole thing in the first place because of a YouTube video that I saw of her doing an interview with some diary of a CEO guy. And I've seen like one other interview since then, I think. And she's just flirting with these dudes the whole time. So yeah, of course you're going to be captivating. You're beautiful and flirting with the interviewer. And I know this is practical application of the ideas that you're pushing in the book, but in the book you're not identifying it as flirting. And I don't know if that comes from an authentic place where, again, she's just she has mathed her way around the social cues, so she doesn't necessarily know she's doing it, or if she does know she's doing it, and that's the gimmick. Either way, it's not going to work for everybody. And it's certainly not going to work for dudes. Because let me just... I hate to be a sexist about it. Let me just grab some of the Captivate Science of People sparkers. The one that I was especially partial to was, are you working on anything interesting recently? I think that's a much better way of approaching it than how are you? And she says that this is going to pick out goal-driven people for you. This is the kind of thing that's only going to respond or get a response from people who are very self-motivated, very driven. Then she's a major advocate of finding your people, finding your tribe. You know, in your tribe, she is herself a very driven person, so she is trying to find other people who are very driven, and if you find someone who is not very driven, then you don't need them. Get rid of them. In the same way that she advocates, don't say yes to things. Everyone says always say yes, don't say yes. Say yes to things that you're really good at. So if you're really good at communicating through text and at parties, try to line up all of your important interactions to be through text or at parties. You want to play to your strengths. Strategically, it makes sense, but it doesn't really benefit people who are awkward everywhere. You know, it doesn't really deliver on what was promised. So some of the other ones are like, what's your story? And that's vague, but would kind of work, again, in a situation where you're flirting. But then, this is where it starts to break down, taking these conversations to a deeper level. So once you have achieved acquaintanceship and everyone is like, you guys are getting along, then she wants you to ask questions like, what's your biggest regret? Or, if you had to pick any character in a book, movie, or TV show who is most similar to you, who would you choose? And why? And like, if a pretty woman with red lipstick and a wagon came up to me and asked me that question, I'd be like, oh, what a fun question. Let me throw that back a little bit. We can play with this. And that will proceed into the kind of conversation that she's talking about. If a man who I know in the gym, if like a lifting buddy, you know, comes up to me, and this can be a guy, I'm thinking about all these lifting buddies I have right now. I've been talking to him for like years, 2 years. Like we get dinner together sometimes and stuff. But if one of them came up to me and said something like, when you were growing up, what was your dream job, dude? And is any part of that still true? I'd say, what are you talking about, man? You're being weird. So, Captivate is not marketed to heteronormative men. But that tracks because they're largely not going to care about how they are perceived in interpersonal communications. This is for women and woman-adjacent parties, right? That's what Captivate's marketing to. But, again, there was a lot of interesting stuff in it. So I know this sounds like I'm trashing her. I'm not trashing her. This whole time, this is not... that's not what this is. I'm trashing the epidemic of people who attempt to capitalize on generational insecurity because we're millennials and we grew up staring at screens and we're all sort of socially damaged. Like, we were socially damaged to begin with. Human beings in general living in a society, that's what Civilization and its Discontents was about. We're all kind of socially damaged because we are not of the shrub, but we, this current generation, and God help the Zoomers and Gen Alpha, we're torched. Dude, we're cooked. So, of course we're going to be vulnerable about this. And of course we're going to be looking for solutions. And so these people are selling these solutions. Selling them for money. And she is also selling it for money. But she believes it. She doesn't think she's a scammer. Robert Greene knows he's a scammer. The pickup artist guys know they're scammers. 50 Cent, when he wrote that book, he wasn't writing. 50 Cent wasn't like, hey, you know, I really want to help the world with what I've learned. 50 Cent knows he was ripping you off. You know? And that's fine. He's a businessman. That's a lot of what business is. Vanessa Van Edwards doesn't think she's a scammer. She believes it 100%. She wants to improve your life with it. And if you are coming from a similar place where the awkwardness runs that deep, cuts that deep, maybe it could be helpful to you. You know, this is like just a primer in basic human interaction. So to that end, maybe it could be beneficial. Sure. Does social psychology's newest darling have anything of her own to add to the mix? Obviously, she's doing a lot of mixing and matching from the works of these other theorists, but what is Vanessa bringing to the interaction? I'm glad you asked, because Vanessa's main contribution is the suggestion of nutting on your clients. So what the nutting stands for is the N is for naming, so helping them to identify the emotion verbally by talking them backwards until they assign a specific name to it, and then understanding, demonstrating the empathy by telling them what you believe they are probably feeling in response to having that emotion and how it connects. And once they feel understood, at that point, you can consider forward into transformation, which is just looking for a solution. So instead of just whining about it, how about we take an actual step that would improve it? But you cannot transform before you do the first two steps, because otherwise it will seem like you are being condescending, or you're not listening, or you're trivializing, or something like that. And the best part is, according to Sweet Vanessa, it's not just your clients on which you can nut. You can also be nutting on your loved ones. You can be nutting on people at work. There's really, the only limit to who you can nut on is your imagination. The elephant in the room is that she's good looking. And a woman. So all of these things are going to be easy mode for her. A good looking woman can come up and say anything. It doesn't matter. I've had good looking women come up to me and just start talking about pooping. You know? And like, if a guy, because they don't know. Sometimes, like if they're really good looking, like if they're hot enough, they don't know. Because they've been coasting through things for so long that no one ever really, they were rarely checked on the things that they say. Because whatever they say, people are like, oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's like how you would have those attendants to the king, you know, talking about the same things that were discussed in the Bullshit Jobs review. This entourage around royalty who just existed to yes them to death. Because to know them at all, to say no, would put yourself on the chopping block to get literally decapitated or to lose your entire livelihood. And at some level, we still have a lot of those same sort of schemas down there. Scheme. I don't know how to pluralize it, and I won't find out. So if somebody gorgeous comes up and starts saying any ridiculous thing, for the most part, people are polite. You know? And they're just, yeah, sure. No, that makes perfect sense. And it distorts your ability to recognize, it distorts your ability to receive feedback and get like an honest read on the situation. But I do think it's a factor that the people scientist at the Science of People should probably take into account with regard to her shtick. What do I know? I'm just some guy. Thank you for tuning in for another one. Like, follow, subscribe. There will be more in the immediate future. Oh, I almost forgot. I might be making the 150. You know, we were talking about in the last video how I wasn't sure if I was going to make my Goodreads yearly. Well, I really knuckled down, and I'm doing a big drive today. So I'm going to have enough time to get through like an audiobook and a half, and that might just squeak me in. Just barely. It's the 30th right now. So I need to have this done before the 1st. So wish me luck. Like, follow, subscribe. I love you. Okay. So we're going to do Now, that was her recommendation for a perfect selfie. She was talking about the Duchenne smile and how you got to get the wrinkles next to the eyes. Make sure a smile's not fake, because then you just look like a psychopath. Yeah, don't do that. You gotta get the wrinkles in. But you gotta go straight forward. Yeah. You gotta show some teeth, but not too many teeth. And there's hand gestures are supposed to be involved in some way. What do you think? Is that perfect selfie? Yeah. No, that one's going on the main page. Alright, see you next time.